So I'm supposed to move a little slowly here so that the stage can get cleared, and so I'm going to do a couple hand puppet tricks for you while we're waiting. Wow, everybody's still here. That's very cool. You're enjoying the city, and everybody's anxious to hear, I think, this next session, and certainly the remarks that Bob is going to make. There's so many points of convergence that I've heard over these last few days. I think there's really less consternation about what it is we need to do and more about how we go about it. That said, it's easy for all of us to toss our hands up in the air and say, well, my members will make that decision, whatever that decision is. Or I have a president this year that is completely opposed to stepping outside of our established lanes, or our relationship with our neighbors is strained, or, you know, NAR should really step in and help us with this, whatever this is, or that damn NAR has issued guidelines that are impossible for us to follow. So it does make the road ahead just a little bit difficult. Developing policy and implementing programs that serve an entirety of a marketplace is difficult at best, and yet that's what each of us attempt to do. Bob Goldberg and I have known each other for a long, long time. We used to work together back in the 80s. What I would say that this audience should be comforted in as it relates to Bob is that he understands the letters MLS is an acronym for a business and not a disease, or Major League Soccer. So he brings a sense of the spirit of cooperation and compensation in the marketplace, the technology chops, and the political understanding of what goes on in this market, the likes of which we've certainly never seen in the first chair at NAR. So would you join me in welcoming the NAR's newly installed CEO, Bob Goldberg.
Thank you. Hey, buddy.
Gotcha, buddy. I gotcha. You're here.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you.
You've had a whirlwind tour.
I have.
How's it going? You having fun?
I'm having tremendous fun. I'm in and out of the office, meeting with members, more importantly, listening to members.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. How many days on the road are you now?
Well, I've been in the position about 6 weeks.
Have you met your staff in Chicago yet?
Many of them are here, so it's a great chance for me to talk to them. See, they're all over there waving. That's good.
Yeah.
So I do a balance between travel and certainly being in the office.
What's the biggest surprise you've learned since you've been out on the road nonstop these last couple months?
I would say the size of the fire hose that I'm sucking from every single day. It is incredible. I'm averaging about 300 to 500 emails a day, or texts, or LinkedIn connection, questions, and Facebook, et cetera. But I think the fact that, the mantra that I have been bringing to the table, and certainly being a veteran of the industry over 30 years, is the willingness by myself and certainly our senior team to go out and listen to our members and listen to the issues that are out there facing us, and really being able to be in a position to synthesize all of the things that we're hearing and be able to come back and make them actionable items.
Who is that senior team? Is it Katie and Mark, and who is it?
Our chief lobbyist, Jerry Giovanella, our chief economist, Lawrence Yoon, Mark Leswing in our technology areas, our community outreach and grassroots efforts, Walt Wittick, Matt Lombardi, who took over for a good part of what I've been doing, and Katie, who is the expert on everything legal within NAR, Janet Branton, who is our senior executive of Global. So
Katie knows a lot more than just legal, then. She's
and MLS policy.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
So, Bob, I think it's safe to say that after a number of years of an often prickly relationship with NAR.
That's different when you said, you're saying don't act like a prick.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say that. It's a prickly relationship between NAR and a lot of the people in this room, but I think there's a real desire, at least there is, my sense is that there's a real desire on the people in this room to rebuild that relationship and to get it back on track. But in order to get it back on track, I really got to address the elephant in the room, and I think it goes to answering or helping to build that new foundation. In May, your predecessor referred to some in this room as a cartel. And just as now, I suspect people put their cell phones down, I'm sure they did then in DC, words matter. What was that all about?
Well, I'll say it this way, and I won't speak about any predecessors. Let me say it this way, because I think the real underlying question is what is NAR's philosophy, or Bob Goldberg, the CEO's philosophy, when it comes to working with MLS. And certainly being a veteran of MLS, it's been in my blood. That's how I started in this industry. I think that it's more about how we strengthen and partner with the MLSs. We're all in this together. Our MLSs, which are extremely valuable in this country, serve our members. We have nearly 1.3 million members today. And so I will say convincingly, hopefully to all of you, that that attitude, or an attitude of believing that that there's a wall or an effort internally with a philosophy to not try to work as hard as we can with MLSs does not prevail. It's certainly not there under my staff today. And I'm very encouraged by the conversations I've been having with MLSs, because many of the folks in this room are friends of mine I've known for over 30 plus years. And we need to strengthen that relationship and build a stronger bridge to better serving our members.
Okay, good. In your remarks in Chicago, you indicated that you were creating a new technology center, a thought leadership group. You said you wanted to bring the disruptors into the tent. You also said, and now I'm paraphrasing, that technology is not our core competency, and we can't fall into the trap of a not invented here syndrome. Now, I've probably taken 30 minutes worth of your remarks, and I've condensed it down into 3 or 4 sound bites. Are you saying that NAR would much prefer to help facilitate the discussion as opposed to delivering the solution?
Well, I would say it's a mix of a couple of things. One is, because you're right, you took about 30 minutes of things and slapped them into a nice sentence. So let me expand a little bit on what I've been talking about. We deliver lots of great things that we're experts at, as what a trade association should be doing. So, you know, we're unparalleled with what we've done in our advocacy efforts and our grassroots efforts. In fact, I want to thank a lot of people that are in this room who actually participate with us in our corporate ally program. David has certainly been a leader in helping us with contributions from many of the MLSs to help us in our advocacy efforts. And if you're interested, we'd certainly love to talk to you about all of you contributing for that effort, because it's about keeping our industry strong. So we do that well. We do great with our legal areas, our MLS policy, our education, things that you think of what a trade association is supposed to do. One of the things I had talked about in my keynote, in my coming out party after being announced, was the idea of how do we broaden the tent for this industry? How do we broaden the tent for NAR? And what that really means is, you know, if you look at the success that we've built in our partnering, because we really do that extremely well. We build coalitions in DC. We've got a phenomenal partnership program where we brought outside companies to this industry in our Realtor Benefits program. I think many of you might be familiar with our Second Century Ventures and our REACH efforts, our strategic incubators. We were just named one of the top incubators in the world, not just in real estate, in the world, based on the kinds of things that we're bringing to the industry. So when I talked about the advent of this strategic business and technology area, it really is built off the foundation of what we've done with REACH and Second Century Ventures, where we take these companies that are small garage-type companies, and we've provided mentorship and advisor, being a key advisor to them, to help make them successful in this vertical, to let them do their own thing. So if you think about that concept of where we've been successful, my idea is, of what we're implementing, is to push it higher up in the funnel. Look at the major players in the world that have not yet thought about playing in the real estate vertical. There's a lot of them. I mean, we were all surprised a couple months ago when we heard that Amazon was creating a real estate referral marketplace. We shouldn't have been surprised by that. You know, disruptors and innovators, as they're coming to light, see a multi-trillion-dollar business in real estate as very attractive. So players around the world that we all know are going to target this industry. There's no doubt about that. So what we need to do as an industry, and what NAR is going to do, is create a strategic think tank that's going to look at the, not emerging technologies, companies that are major players, and hopefully entice them that when they come to play, they play in our sandbox, not NAR's, our industry sandbox, to help make us all successful.
Do you think if you'd have had that strategic think tank 5 or 7 years ago, you would have embarked on some of the initiatives that you have, you as NAR?
Such as what?
Such as, let's just take RPR for an example.
Okay. Go ahead and say it, David.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so first of all, I don't think the average member really cares that much about Second Century Adventures. I don't think they care that much. I think those of us that are students of NAR absolutely think it's a Herculean effort.
Right.
But the people in this room are probably more self-absorbed in terms of MLS and how it's going to impact the MLS. So what you're really saying is that you want to facilitate the discussion, but it's not an imperative. As a matter of fact, I'm hearing, I think, that it's not really your plan to deliver the technology. You're going to be looking to others you're going to look to coalesce a group of people to bring it together. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think if you used the words in the question before, and I stood on stage in Chicago and I talked about NIH, not invented here. Right. I feel very strongly that NAR ought to stick to its strength and its core competencies and not go down the path of embarking on projects, so it's not just necessarily technology, on things that are not what we typically do or should do. If there's things that we need to bring to the industry, you know, protecting 1.3 million members, first look to see who's got that core competency, who does this for a living, who can absorb the capital and resource requirements to deliver something. I think that's first and foremost where we have to be.
Got it. Okay. So NAR has backed a couple of initiatives that bump into MLS, building on the earlier discussion. RPR and AMP are a couple of years in the making, and they've gotten some marginal results. What's the plan for RPR? Is there a 1, 3, and 5 year plan for RPR?
Not specifically, and I'll couch it like this. We're looking at every single thing NAR delivers from a programmatic or service perspective to our members. What does that mean? My role as CEO and with my team and with our leadership team is to evaluate every deliverable. What does it cost us? What does it cost our members? And evaluate that return against the value that the member is getting. So I'm not going to single out RPR and saying, here's what the plan is for that, because we're looking at everything from Realtor Party, with our advocacy, to Realtor benefits programs, to what we do in legal. Whatever it is, we're going to evaluate every single one of those. We have a member committee, a budget review committee that looks at everything that we deliver, such as RPR, and they get to help make the decisions or drive the decisions, which is based on the investment that we make for those products. How much more do we put in it? Do we fund something? What's the decision behind that? That actually is made by them, our budget review committee, then our finance committee, then ultimately NAR's board of directors.
You know, this is an observation, and because I'm not an insider, I don't know for certain, but in the past it feels like opportunities or solutions were brought to leadership at NAR and then it would vote on it, as opposed to having the issues come back to staff from the association or from the membership, or actually from the leadership to go and implement. How do you envision going forward? Are you going to present the board with options and opportunities, or are you going to be looking for input from them on areas that you should focus?
Well, I think our leadership looks to our executive staff and are certainly looking to me as the new CEO For us to put forth our recommendations, what we should do with every single activity that NAR does, it is the staff that then presents it to different member groups. Sometimes the members will say to us, this should fit in this kind of committee. But a good part of products, services, and programs will run through our executive team, and then it will go through the process for funding as appropriate.
That's great. I have one or two more questions on technology, but it's like there's some technology initiatives that really feel like it's a bit like the third rail for the people in this room. And so what you're saying, I think I'm hearing you say, and the audience is hearing you say, is that going forward, everything that NAR does is going to be assessed, evaluated, understand what the level of effectiveness is of that, measured against the amount of investment that it takes, understand what the resources, human, technical, financial resources there are to pull it all together and make a decision. Pretty good? Pretty safe?
Yes, 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 yes. More than likely, and yes.
Okay, okay. More than likely would be...
You figure that one out.
Okay,
So.
okay. All right, I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Bob, will NAR, do you see NAR enforcing the RISO mandate more specifically? I think there's been dialogue about revoking the charters of associations who have not met the standards thus far. Do you see a hard line in the sand on that?
Well, I haven't yet established what I think our position needs to be on those in all candor. I think that there are many times that our members and leadership look to NAR, leadership throughout the industry, to say that if NAR is going to get behind something, should they put more teeth behind it? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, if you say we really mean this, but you don't really do much about it, then people know that and they don't take it serious. So I think in a lot of areas in terms of, like what we do with Code of Ethics, the requirements of going through that every 2 years, RISO standards, all those things. We try to be very strong encouragers without trying to be the 800-pound gorilla. But I think all of those have to be looked at to see what's best for this industry to make our members successful. That's the guiding litmus test that I look at.
Very good. Everybody in this room agrees that there's enormous value placed on NAR's advocacy and legislative reform efforts. And do you think NAR has this issue nailed? And I get it that NAR invests mightily here, but if we don't get legislative reform and advocacy right, does anything else really matter?
Well, let me answer the first question. We have a world-class government affairs and regulatory outreach area. We're, for the most part, considered one of either the most powerful or second most powerful in all of Washington. We have a tremendous track record with the success, again, because of the dollars that come into our program and the Realtor Party program, and much of which comes from members individually, from states, from MLSs, help make that stronger. We have an impeccable track record in terms of legislative and regulatory victories. We have our biggest challenge right now, in all candor, on Capitol Hill with the new administration's blueprint really is targeting the mortgage interest deduction like never before have we seen. I was with a group of 12 industry CEOs that visited the White House about 2.5 weeks ago. We met with
Did you take Elon Musk's place on the committee for?
Not yet, no. Gary Cohn, who's the National Economic Director, who's laying out the budget plan, and with Mnuchin, as well as Treasury Secretary. And they were very clear that they're not certainly seeing any value in the mortgage interest deduction, despite all the data that really suggests the problems it will cause in home ownership. Because the blueprint, if you're not familiar with it, basically says let's take the standard deductions that most Americans have and double it, per se. And therefore, by doubling it, will more than cover the value of what mortgage interest deduction. That's their philosophy. What they're really doing as an administration is taking the concept of ownership and renting and putting them on the same playing field, which we think is very problematic. So we have a challenge ahead of us. So when you ask the question, have we licked it? We will never lick it because we have to look at the changing forces that now influence Washington. The political climate is like nothing we've ever seen before.
Do you think Congress has regained its courage as it relates to the mortgage interest deduction, or is it?
Well, I think your question actually implies a different play, because the administration may have one plan that they're advocating, and if you read anything, that is what they talk about. Congress, we have still strong support about what it means for the mortgage interest deduction. So this will play itself out. I think there may be some compromise that may come down to saying maybe there's a cap of some type, but we have very strong support in Congress on both the House and the Senate sides for protecting MID and tax reform so that it doesn't disadvantage. Like, for example, being able to write off property taxes and local taxes. Those are all equally as important. Doesn't help to preserve MID if they take away the tax benefits.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lesson here for the audience, and that is to pay attention to this the Realtor Ally Party. I mean, it is so important. Participate in that. It is absolutely essential that we as players in this incredible market support that, because I will tell you, well, you know that 3 or 4 years ago I helped get the vote out with the MLSs, and I'm an absolute believer. I did it more selfishly to learn about what's going on with all that money, where does it all go, and I'm amazed at the work that you guys do. Effective communications is probably pretty high on your list, as you indicated by your outreach. Do you see any potential in CMLS and NAR collaborating on the MLS value proposition to not only realtors but homeowners as well in a partnership together?
Absolutely. I think we've got to build this partnership stronger. I mean, my personal commitment is there. The challenge that I see that NAR has in general, and it's a challenge everybody has these days, and I guess I'll ask a question before I state this. How many of you were in Chicago for the Leadership Summit that were there? Okay. So some of you've heard, well then I'm not going to tell you half the stuff, but you've heard the challenge that I really do believe is the preeminent issue that we have to deal with, and that is engagement of our members. And how do we get them to pay attention to what NAR is all about? So we have been actively engaged. We're actually implementing a lot of new programs where certainly myself as the CEO are coming to meetings to listen to what our members what they have to say. Our senior team is doing the same kind of thing, going out, listening before we talk, which is a sea change for NAR. But one thing that is clear, and I really believe this strongly, the engagement that our members really do have is every day with their online MLS system. That's the lifeblood of the industry for them to conduct transactions. So I think there's something there, because the engagement with all of you in this room, with our members, is electronic every single day. So how do we tap the philosophy of the mission that I have, which is how do we get our members to pay attention to what's really going on in this industry and get them to engage. It's one thing to pay attention. I said this, and I really do firmly believe it. I love the fact that when we get great feedback from our members, and we hear that regularly. I also get feedback from our members where they're pissed off. Great. It's the other 60, 70% that are totally indifferent, that don't give a damn. That's the segment we've got to get attached to. MLSs do play a unique I think provide a great opportunity, because you do connect with them every day. So I think there may be something there that I'd love to explore more, which is how do we meet on that common ground of keeping our members involved and care about what's going on around them in the industry.
Yeah, we at CMLS just created a Make the Market Work campaign, and I've given thought to this and thought, man, if we had the muscle of NAR with this and their outreach, we might be able to make it that much more successful. Bob, you and I worked together in the MLS business in the 80s. This is a time before social media. This is a time when you could go places and not worry about being captured on film.
Thank God.
Thank God is absolutely right. You've made several references in your opening couple of weeks to in various forums since you assumed your new role, to your history in the MLS business. Tell us just a little bit about tell us what do you think is the greatest lesson that you learned from those years in the trenches when we worked together?
Yeah, and like we said, thank goodness there are not social media, because David and I have stories. One day we promised that we're going to write a joint book together, because we can tell some stories, as many of us.
And about some of the people in this room too.
Yeah.
Not just about us.
Yeah, many of them, in fact. I will tell you, I mean, that was my first real entree into the real estate world and to this industry. And, you know, the lessons that we learned then was that, you know, words matter, actions mean a lot. We had to deliver, we were on the hook to deliver. And so it was a simpler time, it really was. We didn't have all the distractions and the noise that we face every single day that we do today. And so then it was a very high touch, high impact business, as real estate is. But even in terms of serving our members and serving our boards, we had to be out there and talk and meet with them. Over the years, because of the changes in social media and email and reliance, people have gotten more detached, and it's harder to get mind share of our members. And so what I've learned from that, as all of us have in business, was those were simpler and easier times to communicate and get input. What we need to do today, and what I'm really bringing to the table with our organization and with our leadership, our elected leadership, is go back to that high touch, high impact. Go out and talk with people. Go meet with people. Meet with your customers. Our members at NAR are also our shareholders. And we have an obligation to go out and hear what they're trying to tell us. So this going out and talking and showing up here, without getting into how many times people way before me in the CEO role actually engaged, that's what I need to do to bring this organization back in touch with our members. My senior team's doing it, our leadership team is doing it, and we're going to continue to do it. This is not well, Bob in his first 3 months is going out. I know you'd written that letter about the listening tour for the new CEO. This is what I'm going to be doing all the time, and creating that balance. But I will tell you, just in the first 6 weeks of sitting in this chair, what I have heard is a continual theme of, it's not as much, here's all the issues. The theme is, wow, NAR has finally come out and is taking the time to talk to us, engage with us. Mm-hmm. That's the prevailing feedback we're getting.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know you're considering retaining an outside organization, or maybe you have already,
Right.
to come in and look at how NAR is structured.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, having had 20 years, 22 years, I guess, with NAR, is that right? 20 plus years. You got to have some opinions. I mean, is there anything any light you can shed on the org structure?
I will say this: I have a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of things in play as we speak. We have retained one of the top organizational design firms that I brought to the table to work with our senior team. And the goal of that is to look at how do we better optimize how NAR operates, how we respond to our members. Those of you in Chicago heard me talk about the perception, or maybe even misperception, of the ivory tower. And that was somewhat heresy for me to say that, because I caught some flack from people on the inside that says, how dare you would say that about our own association. But I talked to a lot of people, and there is that belief that NAR in Chicago and Washington sit atop the ivory tower and push decisions down or make decisions without really understanding the impact and what it means. So the organizational design study that we're doing is to have an unbiased outside set of eyes to hopefully help confirm what I believe is occurring. I think there's too many handoffs in NAR between different groups. And I think we need to restructure ourselves to be an outside looking in organization, which is what's happening in the marketplace and how do we structure ourselves from that side back in to better serve our members and our industry.
So it's...
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
It's September 2018, and you've been invited, Danae has invited you to come back here and speak again, which I hope you will do. And you're describing some of your accomplishments. What do you think they'll be?
First and foremost, far greater engagement with our members. far greater engagement and collaboration with our industry partners. And I really, truly believe MLSs are a good example of partners with us. We may not have always acted that way, but that will be what we will bring to the table. We're all in this together. It's not just MLSs, it's also the brokers, it's the franchises, it's the industry service providers. We've been in the news with NAR being in a legal battle with this one or this company. Either way you look at it, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of our members are customers of some of those companies. And we need to take a different view, which is, while we may have differences in approach or opinions, what I'm going to tell you a year from now is we have established great relationships. We're open, we're collaborative. I will tell you firsthand, and not to be self-serving, but some of those people that you would think are arch enemies of NAR engaged in conversations with me my first day on the job. And they were surprised that I took the call. They were surprised that I followed up and have engagement. There were people here that were surprised that I came to CMLS. That's what this is all about, is for us to build this relationship and treat everyone as partners. We may not always agree, but we should talk and collaborate.
What do you want the audience to remember about today's discussion? I'm sure that each person in the audience they may have had an impression of you, or maybe not had any impression of you, but there's an impression of NAR. As they walk out of here today, what is it, the one thing that you hope that they remember?
Well, the first thing is this raspy voice is, I'm not trying to do my...
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I am. I've lost my voice from talking too much. I want people to walk out saying that this is a different NAR. We are a different organization. That's not just me as CEO saying this is my vision. I also have the 3 upcoming presidents, Elizabeth Mendenhall, John Smaby, and Vince Malta, all joined at the hip with us. And we're all saying the same thing. That's been hard to say over many years of NAR leadership, because every year typically a new president comes in and this is the direction they want to go. Then the next president comes in. We need continuity of approach, continuity of our message, and how we all work together. So that's what I hope everybody walks out saying, this is not the same old NAR. Thank you.
I think with 6 weeks on the job, clearly it's all about aspirations. It's all about what we want to do. And I guess the next 6 months will give us more of an indication. But I appreciate you coming by here today.
Sure.
I think the audience really appreciated it. I know I know that all the folks at CMLS do. So thank you, Bob.
Well, no, thank you all. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you.